Hello, my name is Dr. Minde, and we're going to discuss the skin in this lecture series. So, the skin and its appendages. Yeah. So, um, these are the objectives, the functions of the skin, what is the structure of the dermis and epidermis, the differences between thick and thin skin, and then afterwards we'll discuss the appendages of the skin and some aspects of applied anatomy. So, the skin is the largest organ in the body, and it's approximately 15 to 20% of the total body weight. So it forms part of it forms the integument system, which comprises the skin and its appendages. And there are two main layers: the epidermis, which is the outer, and the dermis, which is the inner part of the skin. And the adipose tissue that lies below the skin is usually referred to as the hypodermis. So the epidermis is ectodermal in origin, while the dermis is from the mesoderm. What are the functions of the skin? So the main function is protection. So it will protect the structures in the body from injury, from desiccation and infection, all this coming from the external part. Then the regulation of body temperature. Remember, we have sweat glands which produce sweat, which if sweat evaporates, it causes cooling. And we also have fat for insulation. We have the blood vessels that vasoconstrict and vasodilate in cold or in high temperature respectively, and also the presence of hair. Then there's also the absorption of ultraviolet radiation, and that helps with vitamin D metabolism. Then sensation of touch, temperature, and pain stimuli from the external environment can occur at the level of the skin because of the presence of the skin receptors. The epidermis is the superficial layer of the skin, and it's usually avascular. There are four main cells in the epidermis. You have the flattened squamous cells, the keratinocytes. Then you have the melanocytes, responsible for producing melanin that gives skin its color. We have the Langerhans cells. These are cells of the monocytic phagocytic system that act as antigen-presenting cells. So they have an immune role. And then we have the Merkel cells, which are mechanoreceptors for touch. So the epidermis overlies the dermis, and at the portion where they interdigitate, we have the dermal papilla interdigitating with the epidermal ridges. So these ridges are the ones responsible for fingerprints. Then we have 5 layers of the epidermis. So usually we tell students to remember by saying good small girls like candy. So the most superficial layer is the last one, C, candy, so stratum corneum. So good small girls like candy. Good is stratum germinativum, small is stratum spinosum, girls is stratum granulosa, like stratum lucidum, then candy is stratum corneum. So the stratum corneum is the most superficial layer and contains non-nucleated keratinocytes. So by the time keratinocytes migrate from the basal layer to the superficial, which is the corneal layer, they lose the nuclei and organelles. So they are non-nucleated in the corneum. And this layer usually undergoes continuous shedding, which we call desquamation. Then the stratum lucidum is a clear and homogeneous layer, and it's only found in thick skin. And thick skin is found in the stratum lucidum is found in thick skin, and that's mainly in the plantar surface and the palmar, the palms of the hand. So keratinocytes within the stratum lucidum usually also lack the nuclei and organelles, but they contain what we call eladin, and this is a transformation product of keratohyalin. Then we go to the stratum granulosum, which is the most superficial layer where nuclei are usually seen. Remember, we've said the nuclei and organelles from stratum germinativum or basal. As the cells migrate towards stratum corneum, they lose the organelles and the nuclei. So the most superficial layer with nuclei present is the stratum granulosum. And the keratinocytes here usually contain occasional membrane-coated granules, which we call the lamellar bodies. Then the stratum spinosum contains few layers of polyhedral and cells which have ovoid nucleated keratinocytes. So these keratinocytes are polyhedral in shape with nuclei that are ovoid. And the cells are attached by desmosomes, and the keratinocytes in the deepest layer of this stratum spinosum, they usually have the ability to undergo mitosis so they can divide. Stratum germinativum is also called stratum basal. It's the deepest layer of the epidermis. It has one layer of columnar, or we call it high cuboidal keratinocytes, which are actively dividing. So mitosis is very active, and these cells are attached onto the basal lamina by hemidesmosomes. Remember, hemidesmosomes are basal specializations of epithelial cells. Then the basal keratinocytes are able to migrate and proliferate to cover the damaged parts or destroyed epidermis under the influence of growth factors and vitamin A. So when the epidermis has a cut, for example, these keratinocytes are able to proliferate to cover the wound. Also, the stratum germinativum contains melanocytes for skin color and marker cells, which are mechanoreceptors for touch. The stratum basal, together with the next layer, which is stratum spinosum, both of them, when they're together, we refer them to as the Malpighian layer. So this is your stratum corneum, cells with no nuclei and organelles. It's the most superficial, followed by stratum lucidum. Again, they have no nuclei here, and it's only found in thick skin, the palms and the soles of the foot. Then stratum granulosum, this is the most superficial layer where nuclei will be observed. Then you have your stratum spinosum with your polyhedral cells, and stratum germinativum, where you have columnar or high cuboidal cells that are able to divide by mitosis. So this is thick skin, okay? So this is thin skin, and there's lack of the stratum lucidum, but in thick skin you'll find it. So what are the differences? Thick skin, of course, is thicker than thin skin in terms of the thickness, I mean. Then the thick skin is in the palms and the soles of the feet, while thin skin in the rest part of the body. The fingerprints are present on the thick skin. Remember, thick skin is on the palms and soles, so you'll have fingerprints. Thin skin is in the rest part of the body, so you'll see hair follicles, and hair follicles together with erector pillar muscles and sebaceous gland, they form the pilosebaceous unit, which are located only in the thin skin. So thick skin lacks hair follicles, hair erector pillar muscles, and the sebaceous glands. Then stratum lucidum, of course, is present in the thick skin, and all the other layers are thicker in the thick skin than in the thin skin. Then the stratum basal has more sensory receptors in the thick skins. The dermis contains two layers, the papillary dermis and the reticular dermis. Papillary dermis is the one that interdigitates with the dermis, and it is cell-rich, contains a regular network of collagen and elastic fibers, and it has three cells, mainly the fibroblasts, mast cells, and macrophages. Usually, papillary dermis will form dermopapillae, and it's this dermopapillae that interdigitates with the basal surface of the epidermis to form the epidermal ridges. Papillary dermis contains capillary loops and also contains Meissner's corpuscles. Meissner's corpuscles are receptors for fine touch. They are located in the papillary dermis. So this is a Meissner's corpuscle here. So this just shows you thick skin with a Meissner's corpuscle around the dermoepidermal junction. So this is the papillary dermis interdigitating with the basal part of the dermis, of the epidermis. Reticular dermis is below papillary dermis, is a major portion of the dermis and has abundant collagen and elastic fibers, and contains encapsulated nerve endings that serve as receptors. A main example is the Paxinian corpuscle, which are pressure receptors, and the Krauss end bulbs for cold and pressure receptors at the deeper portion of the reticular dermis. That's your Paxinian corpuscle. Okay, you can see a nerve ending that is encapsulated. So, which cells are found in the epidermis? Number one is a melanocyte that synthesizes melanin in organelles, which we call the melanosomes. They use tyrosinase enzyme, which are usually sensitive to the UV rays. So the number of melanocytes usually vary in dark people and in lighter people. Okay. Then the Langerhans cells, we've said their immune role, they're antigen-presenting cells, and they're usually from mesoderm. Merkel cells, they're found near nervous tissue, and they're sensory mechanoreceptors for touch, and they come from neural crest cells. Thank you.